I remember seeing this game trending online back then, and I thought it was cute, but a little strange. Strange because it was a colorful Souls-like game about crabs. I wasn't very interested in the game initially, but the combination was so odd that I felt like I had to play it at some point. Especially since people were saying it's good, and it was my first time seeing a cartoony-looking Souls-like game. And so I decided to play it on stream one day, and to my surprise, I really liked it. Another Crab's Treasure is about Krill, a young hermit crab who's peacefully living his life in a tide pool. One day, a loan shark visits him, claiming that his land has been repossessed and that he has outstanding taxes to pay. Since Krill has no money, the shark ends up taking his shell, forcing him to dive into the reef to find a way to get it back. Another Crab's Treasure story is mostly lighthearted and funny, but it does tackle some important issues, whether it's about environmental preservation or Krill's journey to find himself. The game has a bunch of side characters and other NPCs that have fun conversations as well. I don't know how many times I smiled and laughed at all the puns and ocean-themed cursing. I don't know how else to describe it, but the characters would say things like "to shell with it" instead of "to hell with it" or something. It was really cute. I thought that it fits with how the game balances dark humor with its cartoony side. But as much as I liked the characters, Krill ended up being one of the few people, or ocean people, that I didn't like. I mean, he was adorable for most of the game, and I was genuinely rooting for him, but he didn't get the character development that I was hoping for by the end of everything. It was disappointing because it actually felt like he became worse in certain aspects, and it doesn't help that the ending of the game was underwhelming. So yeah, it soured a bit of my experience when the credits rolled, but I still think that the game overall was great. It just didn't have the payoff that I was hoping for. But you know what was one of the best things about the game? Garbage. I honestly didn't think that the game was visually interesting whenever I saw it online, but I feel like it was probably because I only saw small bits of it. When I played the game, I was impressed by how good it looked. It had this pretty art style that was incredibly vibrant. It almost felt like I was playing a SpongeBob game, to be honest, with the color scheme and everything. And, well, I wouldn't be surprised if another Crab's Treasure drew heavily from the cartoon. But yeah, it's a stunning looking game. What really shocked me from the start to finish was just how creative it was when it came to depicting garbage in the ocean. Pollution, of course, is a terrible thing in real life, and unfortunately, the ocean is filled with practically every possible form of litter. Another Crab's Treasure shows this a lot in the game, and it kind of worried me at first. I thought that it might constantly deliver a littering is bad message in a very heavy-handed way that would have affected the whole experience. But nope, the devs actually made a well-crafted story and world out of this. Trash in Another Crab's Treasure is used by everyone, including enemies and bosses. Whether it's as clothes, tools, or building materials. You'll see houses made out of glass bottles and barriers made out of coloring pencils. Heck, garbage is even used as a gameplay mechanic, with Krill having to swap shells by using things like soda cans, cups, and banana peels. The game has so much creativity behind it that I was constantly surprised, even as I fought through the game's unique boss battles. The devs always found new ways to implement man-made objects into the game's world, so it made exploration so much more exciting. Now, Another Crab's Treasure will have you wandering around different regions in the ocean. It feels almost like an open-world game, except each zone is separated by loading screens, so it's not like a Souls game where everything can be interconnected, but it still borrows a lot from the series, from resting, leveling up, and traveling between shells that function like bonfires, to the heart kelp pods that act as healing flasks. The familiarity of these mechanics made it easy to get into, especially because Another Crab's Treasure simplifies these things. It's not a bad thing though, because it makes the game more accessible. It also adds unique features of its own to the genre. Like, something that I found really cool about exploration is how certain areas make the game feel like a puzzle platformer. It kind of reminds me of older games like on the PS2 or something, except, well, it has the Souls-like genre mixed into it. It was easy enough to find plenty of items when I ran around the map, but I was surprised at just how much was hidden away when I'd climb random nets and grapple my way to the top of structures that are off the main pathways. So yeah, exploration is definitely one of my favorite things about the game. It's rewarding and just plain fun. Like I mentioned earlier, the combat in Another Crab's Treasure is similar to the Souls games. At first, I thought of Dark Souls and Elden Ring when I started playing the game, but then I realized it's more like Sekiro because of how the combat works. You only have one weapon in the game, so the attacks that you can do are pretty basic, from simple combos to charge attacks, but still, dodging, blocking, and parrying are the main ways to deal with enemies. Later on, you can unlock more ways to attack by accessing a skill tree, letting you exchange crystals you've acquired to get powerful permanent abilities. You can also get special attacks called adaptations from defeating major bosses. They were very helpful when I was having trouble with tougher enemies. One of the most effective ways to defeat enemies is to build up their stagger meter, a yellow bar that appears below their HP. Attacking them and successfully parrying their attacks builds up that meter, making them fall down. So the best way to deal with enemies is to be aggressive. If you don't attack them for a few seconds, that meter slowly drains, so you'll have to build it up again by dealing damage. It's very similar to Sekiro, which is why I had to channel my past experience in that game. But as much as this game borrows from all of those FromSoft titles, it has a very unique mechanic using shells. And yes, I'm talking about shell swapping by using trash that's lying around. I thought it was such a smart concept when I first encountered it, and it was even better in combat. So shells are both the armor and shields of the game. You can block and parry with them. They even have their own unique spells using umami, which are kinda like magic attacks that use mana. The downside is that shells don't last forever. They have a durability system, so if they take too many hits, they break. But luckily, there's trash everywhere in the ocean, so you can always find another one for Krill. I normally don't like it when equipment can break in games, but I thought that Another Crab's Treasure handled it well, and it made each fight with enemies even more intense. They also made Krill look even cuter, so I'd say that it's a huge plus factor. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that microplastics are the currency of the game, and they're used to buy shells, costumes, and stowaways that provide buffs. Though the costumes and special shells in particular were so cute, I found myself customizing Krill every now and then, but I think that Mr. Krabs' outfit was my most used costume for obvious reasons by the end of my stream. But anyway, going back to the gameplay, the enemies in Another Crab's Treasure were one of a kind. Some of the fish and crabs look more realistic than Krill and the other characters. Because of that, it was easy to tell when someone was an enemy. Fighting them can be quite tricky though, because of their movesets. If you've played Souls-like games before, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Normal enemies aren't as bad, but the later bosses really ramp things up. They would have delayed attacks, and they'd even mix up combos. I thought that most of the game wasn't very difficult, but some endgame enemies still got me. Still, every fight was a learning experience, even if I kept repeating the same mistakes over and over again. I have to confess something though. Unless you guys saw me do it on my stream, so in that case, it's not a confession. But anyway, it was mentioned in chat during my playthrough that the game had an assist mode, which provided accessibility options, so you could do things like reduce the damage you can take, and prevent yourself from losing microplastics when you die. But what made it stand out was the option to give Krill a gun, like a human-sized gun. Yeah, it one-shots everything. It was hilarious, honestly, and I had fun with it for like a minute or two in my stream. But anyway, the reason why I brought this up is because I thought that the final boss of Another Crab's Treasure was very irritating. I won't show any footage, of course, because of spoilers, so I'll just talk about it. I did everything I could, from leveling up, swapping my abilities, to changing the buffs I got from stowaways, but nothing was really working for me. It doesn't help that my special attack, after I staggered the boss, was bugging out. So I don't know how many times I rushed into the fight, only to get beaten over and over again. The fight annoyed me so much that I just accessed assist mode, pulled out the gun, and shot him in the end. But I discovered something a few days later, while playing the game and recording additional gameplay footage for my review. I missed out on an NPC that let me upgrade my special attacks, and I didn't fully upgrade the amount of hard kelp pods that I could carry, which meant I couldn't get more chances to heal when I needed to. After doing that, I thought, hey, why don't I try fighting the final boss again? And I ended up beating him in like 2 tries. The upgrades helped me stun the boss for way longer than it usually would, and my stagger attacks finally started to work. I wanted to facepalm so much, but yeah, that was my final boss experience. Another Crab's Treasure is a fantastic game overall. I spent like 27 hours playing the game, with the last few hours spent just replaying bits of it and exploring with my old save file to record gameplay footage. But yeah, I had so much fun even though the final part was a letdown for me. There were a few bugs as well that affected my playthrough, but nothing game-breaking or too serious. Still, I'm hoping that Another Crab's Treasure inspires more games in the future to create unusual Souls-like worlds with just as much creativity. I highly recommend the game, and with how accessible it is, I also recommend the game to people who are interested in it but are still hesitating because of the difficulty. There are plenty of options that change the way that it plays, so I'd say go for it. Another Crab's Treasure is out on every platform. Let me know what you thought about the video, and like and subscribe if you like my content. Thank you to my patrons at Patreon for supporting my channel. I just wanted to announce that as of the time of this video's release, I'll be moving to another country next week, the UK specifically, so I won't be posting videos for a while, since, you know, I gotta do final preparations for the move and do all the fun stuff that involves starting my life in another country. I'll be back as soon as I can though. Until then, I'll be streaming until the day that I need to pack my PC. I'll post an announcement everywhere about my move as well. If you want to keep up with me, links to my social media profiles are in the description, especially on my Discord server, so feel free to join it. I'll stay active on other platforms until I can make videos and stream again, so yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Take care everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.